Hello, everybody. This is Mr. Music. How you doing? And it is time for another album ranking. This time I am ranking the albums to my actual favorite band of all time. That would be Led Zeppelin. Um, and I hope you enjoy this. Just one thing, there are no bad albums on this list. They're all great, but there has to be the albums at the bottom. So um, I placed them according to my opinion. Anyway, at the in the comment section, hey, I want to see some of your opinions about Led Zeppelin. How do you rank their albums? And if you like the video, click the like button. Subscribe if you haven't already, and please hit that the bell, so you can get reminded of future videos coming up. All right. Anyway, let's move on with this excellent ranking here. All right. All right. So I'm going to start off at number 9 with the album In Through the Outdoor. And I I like this album, but it really didn't have enough guitar, in my opinion. I think, of course, Jimmy Page was kind of, he was still in the throes of, addiction. So, so that probably, I think there was more keyboard from John Paul Jones on this album. And this was the actual last studio album by the band. Anyway, it came out in 1979. Some of the tracks In Through the Outdoor, it starts off really great. It has that epic Carousel Ombra, terrific song on there. I like that one. And I know this song gets a lot of hate, but I love Hot Dog. I just think it's a great tune, and it's just so different for them. So that this album comes at number 9. Okay, all right. Moving on, number 8, I have Coda from 1982. This was the album that they decided to make. It was, of course, after the untimely death of John Bonham, which was really a tragedy. After he died, they just decided to, disband the group, and that was it. But they put out this album called Coda, which has a lot of tracks from various years of them that were not released. And what's great about this is I would strongly recommend picking up the deluxe version of this album, because I believe it has 3 CDs or 2 CDs, and it's got so much extra stuff on there. It actually, what's cool about it, it is actually the only album that you can find Hey Hey What Can I Do, which was the flip side of Immigrant Song. If you have that song, you have it on single, and I believe it may have been on one of the compilation albums that they did put out a box set. Um, some of the songs that are pretty cool on this album is Walter's Walk, Darlene, and Wearing and Tearing. Wearing and Tearing is a great song. That's just loud and in your face. And of course, John Bonham's drumming is just, over the top on that one. Okay, moving on to number 7, from 1976. I have the album Presence, and pretty good album here. It starts off with the epic Achilles' Last Stand, one of their all-time top tracks. Love that song. Nobody's Fault But Mine leads off side 2, which is a pretty good track there. You've got Candy Store Rock, which is another kind of just really up piece. I love that song. Royal Orleans, excellent stuff on there. Terrific album right there. Presence. Number 6, I have Led Zeppelin, the first album, Led Zeppelin 1, 1969. And this is, great album. I didn't get a chance to hear this until oh gosh, after I heard like a couple of the other albums. Um, because I got into Led Zeppelin when I was a kid, and I'll tell more about that later on. But standout tracks for me on this one is, of course, Babe, I'm Gonna Leave You, one of the great acoustic pieces. Um, Dazed and Confused, excellent track on there. And of course, anybody who's familiar with Led Zeppelin live albums or live concerts, Dazed and Confused ended up sometimes 25 minutes, sometimes 30 minutes. It really, it was a epic piece right there. And How Many More Times is another great track on there too. That's the last track on side two. Communication Breakdown, of course, is terrific on here. And of course, it leads off, good times, bad times. Can't go wrong with that. Great stuff for the lead off album from this legendary band. All right, number 5, I have Led Zeppelin 3 from 1970. And this was a more acoustic styled album, but it's still brilliant. I mean, every song on here is excellent. It just shows the versatility of Led Zeppelin, from the first two, which were really, bluesy and rockish. You go to this album here. Of course, it led off with Immigrant Song. So Immigrant Song is kind of heavy and really, really crazy. And then it, gets into acoustic stuff. You got Friends on here. The bluesy Since I've Been Loving You, great stuff on there. They actually did, there was another version of that song found on Coda, which has more of a, like a distorted guitar on there like that. Gallows Pole, absolutely brilliant. That leads off side 2. And of course, Tangerine, another great song. I think that's the only song by Led Zeppelin I think I can play halfway decently on the guitar is Tangerine. All right, good stuff there. All right, number 4, Houses of the Holy from 1973. Well, this is an interesting album because I remember getting this album. I don't know how old I was, but I got it as a present from my godparents. And back then, when they sold the album, of course, they had to put, paper around the cover to cover up the, the nudity. I don't even want to think what would happen if my godparents would have actually known what was under those papers. And I certainly didn't tell them. So anyway, great album though. Probably one of my all-time favorite songs by Led Zeppelin, the Rain Song, beautiful piece of music. Just love it. Dancing Days, great song. And just that, for Dancing Days, great song by Led Zeppelin. If you want to hear an excellent cover version of that song, check out the one that Stone Temple Pilots did. Then, of course, Over the Hills and Far Away, great number. Of course, it leads off with The Song Remains the Same, a great song right there. The Ocean is on here, terrific stuff. And of course, John Paul Jones, Tour de Force, No Quarter, excellent. All right, coming up at number 3, I have Led Zeppelin 4 from 1971. And I know I'm going to get killed for this one. It's like, how can you put that album at number 3? It's like, it's one of the top 2 in the history, but, it has to go somewhere. And I have 2 other ones that I just felt were better. Of course, it has the 3 classic songs on this album, Black Dog, Rock and Roll, and of course, the song that you should never play in a guitar store, Stairway to Heaven. Okay. With that out of the way, some of the other standout tracks that I like, The Battle of Evermore, excellent stuff. Going to California, the beautiful Going to California, what an excellent acoustic piece. And then When the Levee Breaks with John Bonham's just bombastic drum in that song. Excellent stuff. Led Zeppelin 4. Okay, for the number 2, I have the Physical Graffiti from 1975. This is their double album, and I like to say that this probably might be Led Zeppelin's White Album. Comparison to the Beatles' White Album, because it had such a contrast of different styles. You got the real rock and stuff, and there's some blues on here, and like some of the standout tracks. You got Trampled Underfoot, excellent track. Probably my all-time favorite Led Zeppelin song, In My Time of Dying. Then you have 10 Years Gone as another track, and then The Black Country Woman was a really cool piece, acoustic style there, great stuff. Another track on here, which is one of great, with John Paul Jones leading the charge, the synthesizer, is In the Light. Excellent tune. But the number 1 album, in my humble opinion, Led Zeppelin 2 from 1969. Now, the reason I have this at number 1 is I have some, kind of personal story to tell. This was actually the first record album that I ever owned as a kid, and I was young. I mean, I was like, maybe 7 years old when I had this album. I remember my dad taking me down to the record store. We went to Wallach's Music City, which was a famous record store back then, and he bought me this album, and it is just, what can I say? I mean, aside from the classic Hold on Love, you've got What Is and What Should Never Be. You've got the blistering Heartbreaker with the over-the-top Jimmy Page solo in there. Ramble On, excellent. My gosh, good stuff. The excellent Thank You, which is another great standout Led Zeppelin song. Nice song to play on the guitar too. And of course, Moby Dick, which was John Bonham's tour de force. Of course, when he did that live, he extended it quite lengthy, so that was good stuff on there. But Led Zeppelin 2 always will be my number 1 from them. Very special album, for me. All right, so we have the rankings done. So I have some honorable mentions to talk about here, and I normally don't do the honorable mentions actually on the rankings I've done, but since Led Zeppelin is my favorite band, I'm going to treat them special here this time. Honorable mentions. I have The Song Remains the Same. This is the soundtrack album to the movie that came out, and I believe when the movie first came out, it was real popular at midnight. I never had a chance to see it, until it came out on DVD, and then I saw it. This is the soundtrack album. So when I first bought this, I just thought it was a basic soundtrack until I found out there were additional songs that they didn't put on the original soundtrack album. Thank heavens that they released a deluxe version, which has all the songs. And that's the one that I would suggest anybody get. It's great stuff. I have both versions, but I always gravitate to the deluxe version because I want to hear the whole concert. Next on the honorable mentions list is How the West Was Won from 2003. Excellent album. This coincided with the DVD that was released, which had several live concerts on their live concert footage, I should say. Good stuff on here. This is, of course, they had back when they did their famous West Coast concert run. That's what this album is based on. Good stuff on here. So check that out. Live Led Zeppelin is always good. All right. Next up, we have the complete BBC sessions from 1997. I think they actually had a more condensed version out, but this is actually the complete versions from what I understand. You never know, of course, when they're going to release an updated version. They always seem to be going back in the archives and releasing stuff, so we can purchase it all over again. That's just seems to be the trend nowadays. But anything from the BBC is always good. Check it out. Okay, this is from 2012, the Celebration Day. This is their kind of well, I would say probably their second attempt at reunion. They had the disastrous reunion at Live Aid, which we won't talk about here too much. Celebration Day 2012. This is when they got together and they had the benefit concert for the founding member of Atlantic Records, who had they did a really wonderful concert there. A lot of the great tracks on here. So you had Robert Plant, obviously. You had John Paul Jones, Jimmy Page, and to round out, you had Jason Bonham on drums. Good stuff on here. Excellent album. And finally, on the honorable mentions, I've got the live EP that was released last year to kind of coincide with Physical Graffiti's 50th anniversary. This is, for 4 songs, this is a pretty darn good release, because you've got 2 songs from Earl's Court from, I believe, 1975, and then you have 2 songs from Nebworth, something like that, from 1979. So good stuff on here. Led Zeppelin live, always good. So I hope you guys enjoyed this ranking of my favorite band of all time: Led Zeppelin, Robert Plant, Jimmy Page, John Paul Jones, the late John Bonham, may he rest in peace. I think I'm really hoping, as fan as I am, I'm hoping that at some point that Jimmy Page will release the full Earl's Court concerts, the full ones. You can probably get those, find them on YouTube, but I think the part of the concert, because of copyright issues, has been cut out, so you're not going to get the full show. And most Led Zeppelin fans probably have tons of bootlegs of stuff, so that's fortunate. I actually was when I went, there's record store that I visited in New Jersey, Sound Exchange, and I actually got several sound recording albums. I guess I would consider they're probably bootlegs by Led Zeppelin, but but they're all good, and good sound quality on there. So anyway, everybody, take care. Go listen to some Led Zeppelin today. All right, and keep an eye out on the channel. There's more videos coming your way. Take care, everybody.